This video is being filmed after the last one that will appear as if it was made after this one in the listing on YouTube. That's the way it happened. That's the way it goes when you upload two videos where one's massively longer than the other one. But yeah, doing that video, letting off a load of steam, really does me the world of good. You know, even though while I was doing it, I was still under the influence of the druggings. That, like I said, the day was going really well in terms of druggings. Despite my times not going well so often with druggings, but today it was going pretty well most of the time. But around food time, around food time tonight, they upped the druggings, the powers that be, and the video I did was done off the back of that. Point out things I really don't need to point out, but it's just good for me. It works for me. But off the back of that, then we have some shenanigans being engineered to try and hype things up again, to keep the ball rolling for the powers that be. When I pointed that out, it ceased, only to be followed soon after by more shenanigans, but the type of shenanigans you'd expect. For example, people dressed to impress, people doing bizarre, exaggerated walks. How many times have we seen those sorts of stunts? But anyway, what I didn't mention in that video, by the way, is that they've got this obsession with South Asians, which has become evident. And they've even given me yet another shrink that's a South Asian. I'm guessing from the guy's name. Sort of thing. But this is the thing. From day one with the photographer, if that's seen as day one. The one of the architects who took a photograph and then assigned Hermine into that photograph with implications to this day you can still see going on and out and about. And that's just I'm not fucking interested in any argument about South Asians. I mean, I'm a quarter South Asian. My mum was half Indian. A quarter. And yet they're coming out with all this. It's not what I want to say. Because I consider myself to be, because I am, even though I was born and raised in England, a significant, half of my blood is Polish. Is either West Slavic or Eastern Slavic. Eastern Slav. I do consider many of my sense of humour, for example, own a lot to Slavs. This sense of not wishing to kowtow to the power of the architects. That drive for some sort of independent stance in relation to those people and what they brought about. That again can be is quite evident to this day with some of the things I point out. But he, like I say, the video I just did does me the world of good, it's good to do that sort of thing. More people need to do that sort of thing. Maybe, not on YouTube, maybe in a journal or something. I think as we get shenanigans starting from the characters just while I'm doing a video, I will say incidentally that my so-called next door neighbour, whether she was busted into town or not, pulled the same fucking stunt she pulled about 6 months ago. It's almost exact, except she went that way instead of that way. It's just like, what? Anyway, but yeah, the druggings have gradually not had the same effect that they had on me while I was doing the last video. But yeah, and there's been manipulation of mood, manipulation of thought recently with chemicals by the powers that be. But I'd say, my default would be that I'm really chuffed with how things are going. I feel really good. But there are times when they drug me up to have moods that I wouldn't be. Yeah, again, I mean, it's coming out with stuff I've come out with before. Moods I wouldn't have, thoughts I wouldn't have, reactions I wouldn't have, things I wouldn't do. But yeah, I was thinking about meds. If they start drugging me up with the type of stuff they did, like I mentioned before, just after, around the time of the new year, just after the really intense stuff, I'm not sure whether I can do what I did then while being on psychiatric meds. I don't think fast enough, for example, on psychiatric meds. If it comes to that, but I've got to weigh up that they have these chemicals that they've put me on, the official ones that they've put me on. Have been worthwhile to a certain extent. And, I know they've engineered a scenario that if I come off them, they'll just inject me next time. They've got the power to do that. They've engineered the powers for themselves to do that. Even though what I'm saying, how I react, you should say and react in those ways to the type of things that go on. And that's just the way it is. But I find myself doped up with psychiatric chemicals for those purposes, which does show that a lot of theorists, when they do say psychiatry is in no small way a disciplinary discipline, that and we see how people try to position me and so on and so forth, and try to suggest things to me and all the rest of it. And I cannot even go for a coffee in town yet. I don't want to go yet anyway. I did think, should I go today? And I thought, no, I've got to get a daily set of activities going before I start venturing out. Or I'll put all my eggs in one basket, going to a coffee shop, and it ain't anything major, is it? You're just going to a fucking coffee shop. So build up, after being on the ward for so long, build up things like reading and doing other stuff that I bought stuff for today. So build up my days a bit, pack my days in with some interesting stuff. Like, so I'm not, talking about, sort of put in my version of placement to put all this in its place. Funny how they like to put people in their place, but they don't like their shenanigans and their druggings being put in their place. Wasn't it always going to be the but yeah, so yeah, I felt really good off the back of doing that video. It's nearly half an hour, but yeah, and really I had a good day. Really was. I mean, it's not nothing major. Yet more druggings. Well, what do you know? That's just the way it goes. It's like I did mention in the video that I've done that comes after this in the YouTube listings. I think that I don't. You'd have to be a complete idiot to not think. Well, sooner or later they're going to pull a series of sequences, a series of stunts, because they've given themselves the power to do that, as you'd expect in a total institution. But yeah, my reaction to the architects to all this is more in keeping, I'd say, with Polish people than it is with Eastern Europeans. Polish people than it is with South Asian people. So I fail to see why I'm being given a South Asian psychiatrist, a South Asian shrink. But if I'm given a big wow, he may go on, he may stop performing and all the rest of it. That's up to them. But I don't know. That seems this guy rang who I said I wasn't going to have any involvement with from the local psychiatric unit the other day, saying, I've got to do an assessment, and I said, I've said I won't have anything to do with you. I sort of want a break from the type of shenanigans they've been pulling in different ways. If anyone thinks that's going to ever stop, then what planet have you been on? But yeah, so that probably was the assessment anyway, and then they're going to try and arrange it, maybe a series of events that I think are shit stirring, but that's just the way it is. But yeah, I was thinking I'm going to have an intermediary, which means this advocacy service possibly. So I don't really want to start emailing the local psychiatric unit and getting into communication with the people there, apart from the shrink, and very reluctantly also with whatever carer, as I like to call themselves, is assigned to me. So I may have to go down that route, even though, as we all know, it's like everything else is rigged to the hilt. Well, they wanted to go with the architects, and all these years later, look what we got. But yeah, that my reaction to the architects, my reaction to the shenanigans, my reaction to the druggings, it's sort of hints more at a Slavic, and my sense of humour hints more at a Slavic influence than a South Asian one, in my opinion. I don't know that much about it, and I'm not particularly, despite 25 years, since 2016, me seeming to go off on one on an ethnicity, I'm not particularly, that's not particularly a big deal for me. That's about it, really. But yeah, now the druggings are wearing off, I'm getting back into my day, a bit pissed off that this is the way it is, that I could just be making a meal, and person B can just drug me up at will. It's like, you do wonder just how much power do these people need. Like I've said before, they just, it seems to be one of the biggest power grabs you could imagine over an individual. Not only, like I say, they do like to frame it as care, but come on, you telling me there's no politics involved in this, that there's no propaganda involved in this? Are you having a fucking laugh? Look at the theorists I've been reading, and the schools of thought, like critical theory, Gramsci and Foucault and Goffman, and critical discourse analysis and stuff like that. The Frankfurt School that I want to get into. I did those books I wanted to read, Dialectic of Enlightenment, One Dimensional Man, I sort of, this is how doped up I am. But my approach tends to be, you take a step back and you look over the broad picture of a subject you want to get into, then you start specialising, don't you? That seems to be the way to do things. But for some reason, I was trying to delve in, reading stuff, as we get a sound effect like we got in the last video, trying to get in to the type of stuff that I want to get into, and you can't really do that without taking a step back and taking a broad picture of stuff. But yeah, really, it was, just get stuck into stuff where I'm not just walking around the flat, like I did at the hospital for the first 8 weeks. I think it was 6 to 8 weeks. Maybe it's 6 weeks. And then I started reading stuff, really getting into stuff. But it wasn't only until the latter stages that I realised that me setting up stuff wasn't really ideal and wasn't really wise. And instead, I just want to, really embrace this notion of a life of solitude, a reclusive life of solitude, which had not the shenanigans and the druggings taken place after my mum died, I would have pretty much been living now anyway. It's just benefit. It's just even better that I'm no longer on that fucking social media, and because it's not only is it good to move on from people. You like I've said before, you get jobs, so on and so forth, and there was other stuff, all the shenanigans and everything that I suppose we all got dragged into, but it's just best to move on from all that, and just say, well, it didn't work out, that's that, and just get on with it. There's another thing to that as well, though, that ties in with what I said about when I used to play football, and people, when I was younger, used to be really cynical about it. And then when I got a bit older, I suddenly thought, well, fuck them, and did stuff my way that worked really effectively, and I learned a big lesson from that. And that's sort of the way things have worked post social media and all that. Now that I'm not dealing with people who could influence me in ways that weren't beneficial for what I needed to do, it's better in the situation I find myself in. Which is pretty unique, then it is best to just live a life I would have been leading anyway, and a life that I need to start embracing. But like I said, this trouble with getting moods, being drugged up to have certain moods, because it may fit the powers that be and the type of storyline they may be going for. Who knows? They seem to be engrossed with so many stories these days, these people, as we're about to hear downstairs. It seems to me sometimes they don't even know whether they're coming or going. But that's the way it is. But yeah, good to do that video, get it off my chest. Get a few things off my chest. It's good for you. You don't want to do that all the time. I've sort of been off the back end of doing that, thinking about the good things there, which I won't talk about here, but maybe in my journal, and then in YouTube another time, talking about the good things that are going on, thinking about the good things that are going on, thinking about the good things I've got going for me in my day-to-day life. and yeah, and hopefully, like I said in the other video, starting to pick up this reading and other stuff, to pad out my days, which is really good for me. If people, it's interesting that people say, "Oh, we care," and all this type of thing. You do know this is on the basis of care and so on and so forth. All of a sudden forgetting that there's a rich history, there's a full history of psychiatry being implicated in power. And yeah, things that are good for me aren't seen that way, and or is it? I don't believe it. But anyway, yeah. And another thing, it would be nice to look at the news, but that's never good. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm not thinking, as I'm looking at the news, anytime now, like with the Druggians, anytime now, they're going to come out with one of their sequences, and it's going to be all that crap again. But that's the way it is. But yeah, they seem really to... there's been times where they've really wanted to play food fights, and then having kittens, thinking that I was having food fights. They arranged all that stuff. I couldn't give a fuck for food fights. Do you really fucking think that I'm going to be standing in my kitchen making food to try and get at people? I want something to fucking eat. That's called everyday life. That's conventionality, isn't it? But anyway, be interested to see how long it is before I go to a coffee shop. I mean, the good weather we've had, it's really nice at the moment. There doesn't seem to be many clouds in the sky. That apparently, according to the forecast, that's not the way it's going to be. It's nice that it's spring, and it does feel like spring now, not some premature summer. It is nice to feel the seasons as they are. But yeah, so I don't know. When I will go to a coffee shop, I'm not that enamoured, but it just does get with going to a coffee shop. They're coffee shops. You're going for a coffee. I've got a fucking coffee machine that makes better coffee than the coffees around here, and at just about anywhere else. Maybe apart from McDonald's, who makes the best coffee on the high street, I think. Yeah. Eventually, who knows, I may be able to go for a coffee drama free, and that's the intention. I mean, that's one of the intentions for me, continuing to take the meds. But like I said, if it does come to the case and come to the point, and let's face it, these people are the people in power, the powers that be, and all the rest of them, are so ready to start running around and all the rest of it. If it does come to the point where I do go through those druggings again, it does look like, despite the fact that it possibly means I would go on really detrimental injections, I may have to, just to get through those druggings, come off the medication that I'm on. I do want a reduction, but this is a reason for getting in touch with an advocacy service or this organisation called PALS, apparently, which is Patient and Liaison Service. I may go that route instead, even though they'll be rigged to the hilt as well. But yeah, I may go that. Actually, that's something I hadn't thought about. I may go that route instead. But I'm going to need an ongoing intermediary, sort of man in the middle sort of thing, to communicate with the shrink I've been assigned and the carer, whoever's been assigned now. So yeah, I'll have to think about it. Anyway, looking forward to getting a few things in the next few days. To get a little bit of a daily regime going, a daily schedule going. Set myself up quite nicely for that. I'll continue looking at the news on my gadgets, hoping that one day, you never know, it may stretch to a couple of days where there's no shenanigans on the on the various news sources that I turn to. Not even on the telly these days. That's the level of control of the total institution. That's what it is. Start looking forward to a few things, despite the fact that a total institution is in effect.